She's older, right? She should start.
That was so funny. I'm sorry.
And welcome to Sip and Tip. I'm MJ.
And I'm Zanae.
Today, we are going to talk to our parents and our aunts and our uncles and our godparents and any other type of parent that could possibly be. We're going to have a lovely conversation on
Elementary school kids. The age group, should I say.
yes. And these children are so excited yet so terrified of everything. They often need a lot of hand holding, which is appropriate in some ways.
Yeah.
You know, you do get those children that are very anxious.
They're ready. Some of them are really ready.
Yeah. And then some of them are just like, but I don't want to go.
Yeah.
But it's a developmental pastime. Like, you got to encourage them to enter the world, even though we may not be ready as parents.
Yes.
They're our babies. We understand.
Took a lot for me.
Yeah. And even as an aunt, I know they're still my babies.
Right.
You know, so seeing them grow and develop and tell me stuff that I didn't think they should know, it kind of takes me aback a little bit.
Right.
And I'm like, dang, these kids are growing up. It's really a flash. It's a flash. So us not having insight into, you know, what they might be dealing with can really be detrimental to them.
Right. And then on top of that, schools are changing now.
Yeah.
With COVID and different regulations.
Yeah.
We're not able to actually be in the schools like we used to for our young ones and stuff. So we have to really put a lot of stock in the teachers.
Right.
And we have to get the children ready.
Right.
That is something I think is very detrimental to these children and to the teachers. Because if they're not ready, they're going to be wild and crazy, and it puts more work and more stress on the class day.
Yeah. And so with children, especially around this age, they absorb how we feel. If we're angry, if we're anxious, if we're nervous, if we're scared, sending our child out into the world, and we naturally have fears as parents, and that's understandable, but we have to check it, for lack of better words, because our children should not have to live life through our fears. So being scared of COVID is absolutely natural, but you don't want to overwhelm them with a fear that they can't go to school or can't get out into the community just because we are scared. And, you know, some fear is good. It helps us, but not to the point of them being so isolative that they don't want to enjoy life.
Or that they become agoraphobic at a very early age.
Right.
We don't want that.
Right.
And for those that don't understand, agoraphobia is when they don't want to leave the house because their fear enables them to.
Correct. And so it's things like that. Like, you want to instill caution and, you know, safety skills for that child. Educate them on the importance of, you know, safety concerns. So, you know, it's sad, but we have a lot of violence that is happening in the world. And I know that's something before COVID was my number one. Like, you need to know when it's safe, when it's not safe, teaching them those skills.
Yes.
So that way when they enter the world, they can pick up on these things. They'll know, you know, when teachers are trying to get you to one space or directing you to go somewhere, especially in a group, you need to go. Don't ask questions, just go. Ask questions later.
Right.
Or, you know, if something doesn't feel right, ask to call me.
Right.
Call home. Or communicate that with your teacher, your guidance counselor, whoever it is.
Right.
And then follow up with telling me so that way we can figure it out.
Exactly.
Because children are very intuitive. They do get those feelings where it's like, maybe I shouldn't. But they don't always listen because of peer pressure, because they feel like they need to appease the adults or appease their friends.
Or they're afraid of the adult.
Right. Or they're afraid of the outcome.
Right.
And so we want to really try hard not to pass along our adult fears, because those are very different as children. Children are supposed to be carefree and, open to things. And if it was a perfect world, they would be able to do that. They would be able to talk to strangers and not have to worry about being kidnapped or, something else. In a perfect world, that's what children are supposed to do. They're supposed to be inquisitive and want to meet new people and go out and see new things. But unfortunately, the world does not always allow for that. And then it's crippled a second time by our fears. Because as parents, we know the harsh reality of other things that the children are not aware of.
That's true.
So teaching them how to be safe about it will also give you a layer of protection and bring down your fear a little bit. A little bit, not a lot of it. A little bit, just so you can be rest assured, like, if something happens, they know X, Y, and Z.
And they definitely come to talk to you.
Yes.
Regardless of what it is. So be mindful. I mean, today we're all on this COVID.
Yeah.
But be mindful that there are other dangers still out there.
Correct.
We still have to keep our elementary kids aware of their bodies, their safety, as far as what is and is not acceptable. We have to instill in them that strangers are still scary. And if you're lost, you go find a safe person, and it's not always just an adult.
Right. And so I do want to highlight that in the realm of keeping children safe, some of the tips you can use or do is, one, if there's going to be a change in pickup person or time, communicate that directly to your child. Whether that means you give them a phone or you call the school and you ask to talk directly to them. So that way they know, and it's not just, somebody else telling them. They know, mommy, daddy, whoever it is said, so-and-so is coming to get me at such and such time.
Right.
So that way they're not going off with, Aunt Susie when Uncle Pat was supposed to go,
Exactly.
Stuff like that. Just because, right. And sometimes family will help out and they don't mean any harm by it, but it causes confusion and it causes air of mistrust.
It really does. I had my daughter was supposed to wait at the school for me, and I get home, she wasn't at the school, she wasn't at the house. I freaked out. Come to find out, she was picked up by an aunt, and I didn't know until 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Which is a horrible feeling to ever have. So always communicate to each person involved and pick up, drop off, everything.
Right. Safe words do work, but you got to remember they're children. They don't always remember if you don't use it regularly or review it regularly. They won't remember, and then they're like, that sounds about right. Or if you change it too often, they're like, that was one of our words, so it should be okay. So you just want to really make sure that you have a concrete system in place. And if you go out, especially to your normal places, if you get disconnected, you want to have a meetup point.
Right.
And so for me, I live near a big hospital. So all my nieces and nephews, I'm like, to find me, just go to this hospital and then call me. If you're at the hospital, I can get there. Anybody can get there if you call any of us. But it's a big point in the city, so that way you can ask anybody, where's this hospital? And they'll direct you to the hospital. So if you have a meetup place that is not something that is easily changeable by the community and that is access to public people, you can have that meetup so if you get separated and you can't find, they're going to try and find that spot.
Right.
That usually doesn't change for many years, so they will always have that focal point.
Right. And that's a good thing, to definitely have something that sticks.
Yeah. So those are ways to keep your child safe, just because children are very distractible. They will see a butterfly and they're like, hey, and then next thing you know, 2 seconds of looking at a butterfly, the distance has been created.
Exactly.
And so even if you turn a corner, I know my children used to hide in the grocery store or the clothing stores in between the racks. Like they would stand in the middle of clothing in the racks. And so when you're calling out to them and you're like, come find me, we always had this plan. Like if you ever get separated, you go to the front of the store and you stand to the right of the door.
Right.
That's it. And they would just stand there. And so if I ever lost them and I couldn't find them after a few minutes, that's where I was going. And if they weren't there, then of course, as a parent, I would go to the desk, go over loudspeaker, have them come to the meeting place.
Right. And that should be the same way in school.
Right.
So if they're supposed to wait and not go anywhere, and everybody's leaving,
Mm-hmm.
Don't get scared.
No.
Don't get scared. There should usually be an adult present. But in my situation, there was an adult present, I guess, and my daughter just left. At any rate, usually there is, and the child can be on a designated area.
Right.
So that's keeping them safe. And then you got the educational aspect, because they are entering elementary school.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that they're prepared. They should at least know their address.
Yes.
Their mother's and father's first name if they live with both parents.
What's your mommy's name? Mommy.
I know. So don't get your child stuck with just mommy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Please allow your children to know your first name. They should know not to use it unless it's absolutely an emergency. But knowing is definitely key.
Right.
I have one of those long names, so my child had to know. You can't just say any old thing because you can't go find me.
Right. And I think it's important, like, if you have a family member that works at the police station, the fire station, a hospital, some of these community service workers can be an asset. So having, especially if they're in the same area where your child goes to school, knowing my uncle works at the police station in Dorchester, right, or the police station in Washington. Like, knowing that information, at least if that child gets lost and they say to another police officer or someone else, I need to get to my uncle at this precinct or this fire station or this hospital, they can get access to those people that can help them.
That's true too.
Yeah.
That's true.
And for the children that take buses,
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to pick up your child, have them wait somewhere, obviously well lit, but somewhere where they can easily be identifiable. So whether that's close to a corner store where maybe, people are coming in and out the corner store, even if they don't know your child, they will see a child there repetitiously and pick up on that. So if that child's not there and then you're looking for the child, they'll be like, oh, well, I didn't see that child here and I see them every day.
And hopefully you've actually scoped out the bus stops before your children start school. That way you know the area. You see what's in that area. You can go there at various times of the day so that you can see for yourself if there's any drug activity or, behavior that shouldn't be around little kids. You got to make sure that you know and that you're there on time, because sometimes you can't be. You need to have a pickup person. You need to do all these things, and it's a lot starting school.
Yes, and I think starting a week or so before school, I'm a big fan of teaching my child how to get home.
Yes.
Because let's say I do lose track of time or I'm stuck in traffic, I don't want that child, if they're feeling unsafe, to stay at that spot.
Right.
But they should walk one way to the house, the same way, all the time. So that way, if I need to catch up with them, I know which way they went.
Right. And if it's on the path that you take to get to them, it's a whole lot easier because you will spot your child.
Right. Right. It's good to just have these things. So that way your child feels safe and has a plan, and you feel safer because your child has a plan.
Definitely. And one thing I can honestly say is children, they feel safer when they know for a fact that you are going to be consistently there.
Right.
If you're not consistent, then truth be told, your child doesn't feel as safe as you believe they do.
Right. And giving them the tools allows them to think critically in their daily process. And so teaching a child how to tell time, so that way they know, okay, well, mommy or daddy said if they're not here in a half an hour, I should start walking home.
Now, teaching them to tell time doesn't just mean the numbers that you see.
Right.
Not just digital. We need them to know all time how to tell all the different times.
Giving them a phone, giving them, some means of telling time versus just waiting for somebody to walk by to ask would definitely be beneficial too. So that way they know, okay, it's been a half an hour. And as parents, we usually know when our child gets off the bus.
Right.
In half an hour, if your child gets off a little early, we'll still give you enough time to get there. But in a half an hour they're walking home. So you, even if you're running late, you're like, all right, it's been a half an hour, they're gonna start walking. I'm now off the highway, or I'm now, on the street. I need to get to, their walking path, whatever that is, and you can intercept wherever they're at because you know where they're gonna go and the way they're gonna go.
Right. And always be mindful of your children's friends.
Yes.
You have got to be listening when they say, oh, well, Jimmy said and Susie said we can do this. Sometimes these children make plans without you knowing.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're late, they're assuming that they was okay to go with Susie and Tommy. So you're going to have to make sure you're listening. You can't just be full of work and busy with other people or other things. You've got to focus on what these little ones are saying, because you might say to something you didn't want to.
And so one thing that I instilled in my children is you can't go to a play date or any other thing until you come home and check in. So they already know you're not going to see anybody else until you get home, right, decompress from school, and then we make plans, or then you will have your already scheduled planned play date. You don't just go straight from school to wherever you're going.
Right.
And so that's another way to keep them safe. So they already know, yeah, maybe I can go to Susie's house, but I got to go home first.
Right. A whole lot easier.
Yeah. And so that way it takes out that element of, oh no, I'm not going to be able to go, because that's oftentimes when children want to, just kind of sneak off or go off on their own whim, is because they're always told no. Right. Because they don't feel like they have the ability to do the things that they want to do. So if you instill, like, okay, if you come home, you do your homework, you change your clothes, whatever the case may be. If they have uniforms, I usually have them change. But whatever your routine is, and then, yeah, you could go to Susie's house or Tommy's house for a half an hour, 45 minutes. It's a school night, so you don't want too long. But at the same time, you're instilling a routine in them. One, it creates responsible children down the line. And two, it's creating a safe atmosphere. So I think that is the biggest thing, is the safety component for these younger children.
Yes.
Because these are their first experiences in the world independently.
Yes.
So just creating and fostering a safe environment will really be beneficial for them and for you mentally going forward.
Yes.
So with that, we leave you with all these lovely parental tips. And don't forget, aunts and uncles can help out too.
Right.
Aunts and uncles are a great asset if they're able and willing to be participatory. I love picking up and hanging out with my nieces and nephews when I can. So if I get the call, hey, I'm running late, I'm like, okay, no problem. Don't worry about it. Like, even if, that child is like, no, I've had my nephew tell me, no, I want mommy. And I'm like, all right, cool. Let's sit here at the bus stop until mommy comes. We're going to call her in the car. And that's fine.
Right.
That's fine, because there's times where your children are going to want their parents. Yes. Not auntie, not uncle, not granddad, their parents. Right. And that's okay. Let's sit at the bus stop together. At least you're safe.
And that's the main point, is that the children feel safe and that they are safe.
Right. So there are so many different ways to keep your child safe. Think outside the box. Do what you got to do. Work within your realm of resources. Mm-hmm. But we got this. We're parents. We make it work.
So hopefully your children will have a very good first day of school. And their school experience will be a good one.
Yes. With that, we will leave you for real. So we look forward to speaking with you soon. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share.
Peace, love, and happiness.